Testing, testing. Greg, nobody's here. Are they out here? Are you guys listening? Haha, just kidding. Hi guys, Starla here again from Stellar Dynamic Solutions, helping you learn how Business Central can help your business reach its full potential. I did forget to mention that was Microsoft. Blooper reel. Anywho, today we're going to talk about the item card and some of the practical ways that it can help your business get more organized about inventory, shipping, purchasing, customer service, and sales needs. Keep in mind as we go through this review that an item does not have to be a tangible good as far as Business Central is concerned. It can be a service as well. So keep an open mind and we'll go through and touch on some of the ways that I think your business can benefit from the organizational tools available at the item level. Stay tuned.
All right, let's get into the item card. So there's a couple ways you can get there. I'm going to choose the drop down option. So from the sales menu, you can go sales and then items. You can also use your search feature here and type in items to get to the item list. Here, you can click in there. So again, in the Cronus database, let's just do a quick overview. If you recall from last video, if you saw that one on customer cards, I talked a little bit about the show more, show less feature, so I won't go into that in more detail, but basically it's just giving me additional options in the fields here that are visible. So we have a few tabs, this main item tab, and then we have inventory, costs and posting, prices and sales, replenishment, planning, which goes along with replenishment, item tracking, which is more for the warehouse, and then we have the warehouse tab. And I'll do a separate video on warehousing. A lot of this stuff that's on the item card is pretty robust. Actually, the item card has a lot of different features. So we'll break this out over time into bite-size pieces, and talk about each one individually where it makes sense. And then on the bottom section, your tabs are going to vary just depending on whether you have additional connectors. So this system I'm using has eShip, so you get some additional functionality here that is not available out of box in Business Central. So keep that in mind. So up in the ribbon here, we have some options where you can manage or create item journals. There's a few different ways to get to things on the item card or just in general within Business Central. There's typically more than one access point. So this item option here is going to attach over here. So you can either go this way or go this way over here. And you have the option to upload pictures for your item and set up item attributes. And we'll talk a little bit about item attributes as well, because that's where you can store a lot of item specific information as it relates to attributes of the item. So, I mean, it seems kind of intuitive, but so things like color or shipping dimensions, not shipping dimensions per se, but item dimensions, the assembled item dimensions, or composition of the item, materials, maybe compliance related information. So like if you're in California, or Green Guard, if you're doing that. So there's a few options. Also prices and discounts. So you can set up item level sales prices, which will also link to the customer level item pricing that we talked about last week or last video. So you can run campaigns and promos and things like that are at the item level or the customer level. So you have some flexibility there. Here is where you'll keep your purchase discounts and purchase prices. Also for purchasing, you can purchase for multiple vendors, right? So you have a vendor drop down here, and it's not to say that you can only buy an item in terms of setup from one vendor. Now, I will say further down here, everything that you see kind of on this front page is going to be a default for the item, but that's not to say that those are your only options. So like prices and sales, for example, you have some defaults here for the item, but you also have the option within the price table to to create some additional pricing that's going to be specific to certain customers or dates or things like that. You also have a sales unit of measure. So by default, this is what will populate on the sales line when you're entering a new sales order, but you do have other options for defaulting a sales line unit of measure through the customer card as well. Also, if you're doing EDI, there's separate EDI tables if you're using LANM or some other connector. So a few different ways to skin the unit of measure CAT as well. So on the replenishment tab, what I was getting ready to say is that under purchase prices, you do have the option to create purchase prices for multiple vendors, but on the item cards, you can set up a default. So if you only ever buy this item or mostly buy this item from a particular vendor, you can set that up here. And then when you create your purchase documents, that vendor will default. So it's just kind of a shortcut for you, but it's not necessarily to limit what you can do. And then more on planning here, stock keeping units, safety lead time, safety stock quantity. We'll talk about that in more detail in another video. Item tracking and warehouse, I feel like these two things kind of go together. Definitely we'll do another video on warehousing. There's a lot to talk about there. You have a lot of functionality. You can go, way scaled down in terms of basic warehousing, or you can go with advanced warehousing if you want to set up bins and zones and things like that. So we'll talk about that another time. And then the tabs at the bottom are only going to come into play if you're using LANM's demand planning or eShip. So you get some additional functionality here. As you can see, UPC, another spot for UPC, which you also can get from the units of measure table. So let's take a look there really quick. There's so many ways to get to something related to the item. I forget which item option it is. So here, this is the item units of measure table, which is out of box in Business Central. You can set up multiple units of measure, and each of them has a space for a unique UPC depending on how you want to sell the item. So these dimensions here are for shipping. So if you're using eShip or some other connector, you can plug in here for shipping dimensions. Also wanted to talk about attributes really quick. And again, I'm forgetting which one. Where are the item attributes? Here we go. So you can set up attributes that are shared across multiple items or attributes that are just specific to a single item. It's really up to you. All of this, everything in this table you see here is user defined, from the attribute code itself to the value and the unit of measure. All of this you can set up based on the needs of your business. So here in this case, we have attributes for color, which makes sense that we would probably want to share that across other items aside from this Athens desk. The depth, maybe not. Or maybe so. So that's the thing that is that's handy about this. And if you click in here, you can kind of see in your setup all of the color options you can have. So for this case, the Athens desk is set up with red, orange, yellow, green, blue. And then when you go to the item card itself, you can select which of these values are applicable to the item. So, and you can also set, I think, let me go back here. And you can set up what type of value this is going to be. So it's an option, meaning it'll be a drop-down menu available, or it'll be a decimal, or it'll be text, and it'll just be free. It'll just be text that you can type in, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a drop-down menu. So you have some additional flexibility there. As I was saying here, you can upload images if you would like for your item. And here's a section down here for forecasting as well. I did want to talk about the assembly BOM really quick, just because some items, if you're selling You can do assembly bombs a few different ways. If you're selling an item either as a bundle, so we could pretend this Athens desk is actually a set of 6 different types of Athens chairs, for example. So you would set up 6 different rows here for each of the 6 different item or SKUs for the chair, and then you put in your quantity per each, and that becomes your Athens desk. So when you on your sales line, you enter this item number here, it will actually create an assembly order which contains all of these components. So everything in this table is a component. So it works for if you're wanting to sell a bundle of products, right? Or if you want to sell, if you buy this gift basket, for example, that has all these different things in it, then you get a little bit of a price discount. Or assembly bombs also work if you're manufacturing items knocked down, and it just so happens that your item ships in like 3 or 4 boxes of wood, you would create a item card for each of your components, and then those would be stored here as well as part of your assembly bomb. So I think assembly bomb deserves its own video, so we'll do that another time. So here I touch briefly so you can set up a safety lead time or a safety stock quantity to hopefully prevent stock outs, reorder points. You have a lot of flexibility with regard to replenishment and kind of just helping keep your supply chain moving. This is where you would set up whether or not an item has an assembly bomb and on what basis, right? So you can assemble to stock. So the warehouse will basically pull components pre-build, and then they'd be available in finished goods on the shelf, or you can assemble to order. So on the fly, as sales orders are created, they will pull all the components together. You'll again setting up your default unit pricing, or you can do kind of custom pricing at the item level as well. And here's all your posting groups and costing, lots of different options for costing. So we'll talk about costing in a different video. There's a little setup available for foreign trade. And I say a little because I feel like there could probably be a little bit more here. Especially with the challenges that we've had in the U.S. in 2020 with regard to tariffs. I've had a couple customers that needed to do some customization to accommodate the different tariff structure and different rates, etc. by country. So here on this main inventory tab is where you have your inventory metrics. So you can drill into this and see how many units you have on hand. And this is extremely helpful, especially if you have inventory spread across multiple locations or geographic locations, fulfillment warehouses. This does aggregate. So this view here, these are just flow filters. So it's aggregating all of the values across all locations, all vendors, etc. So you'd have to click into it to get the detail. You may want to do some additional filtering to just kind of clean up your view. Here you can see how many units you have on sales order or on assembly order. Again, we'll talk about assembly orders another time. And back to the top, you have a space here for G10. Now there is only one parking space, so if you need to have multiple, then that would require customization or some additional bolt-on feature here. But you have your base unit of measure. You also have your purchasing code if you have those set up. So that's pretty much the gist of the item card. There's a lot you can do here. I said multiple times throughout the video that I'm going to have to come back and touch on quite a few things in its own video, because I don't want to kind of glaze over some things that really deserve more attention. Here again, another way to get to your stock keeping units. You can create item setup templates to make creating new item cards a bit easier. So some things, if they're standard, this is a little bit of a shortcut. You can also copy items. So if you want to create item cards that way and just kind of change values as you copy items, make little tweaks, that's one way to go about it as well. Let's see, you can set up approval workflows at the item level if you have that need. Let's look here. Requisition worksheets, that's just another handy way of managing your supply. So you can actually in real time create supply just by entering a requisition for an item. That kind of plays into this setting here to prevent negative inventory. But depending on how you're running your operation, you can either choose to allow inventory to go negative or not. And requisitions are an easy way to kind of clean up inventory position to prevent from going negative if you need to do that. So that is it in a nutshell. There is a reporting option here, but I feel like on the reporting page you actually get a lot more options for reporting that'll probably be more useful. So we'll talk about reports in another video as well. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have questions or you want to find out whether or not the item card supports your unique business need, shoot me an email or leave me a comment and I will reply. As always, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.